How to become a different person in 1 year. 2 years ago, I was a completely different person. In 2021, I was working as an ER nurse in the pandemic. In 2022, I was doing digital nomadism in the Philippines while visiting my family. And this year, 2024, I'm making YouTube videos. I have no idea where I'll be a year from now, and I can't wait to find out. But every year I seem to make a decision that kind of drastically change who I am as a person and also change my life. Like, how do you go from being a bedside nurse to becoming a freelance writer and doing digital nomad? I didn't know anyone who did that, but I did it anyway. I wanted so bad to leave my nursing job that I decided to become a completely different person in 1 year. And in today's video, this is what I would like to talk about. I will share the tips that I kind of experienced or learned, or what I did in order to become the different person that I needed to be in order to be closer to my goals. The very first tip that I have for you is to assume that you know nothing so that you can educate yourself. When I was 25, I got really into podcasts, and I listened to a lot of different podcasts about mindset, about entrepreneurship, about creator economy, finance, and etc. There was one time where I was cleaning my room at my parents' house where I was still living, and this podcast person, the name of the podcast, by the way, was Mindset Mentor, so you might know him. And I was listening to his podcast, and he talked about the idea of schooling system. And at this time, I was really desperate to quit my nursing job, so I was listening to anything and everything. And this podcast introduced me to the idea of the schooling system, how the schooling system basically trains you to become an employee or a worker. Not that there's anything wrong with becoming a worker or an employee, but this idea that, school tells you when to get there and when to leave. The school tells you when to take your breaks or go for lunch or recess, whatever. And then once you're done your school from elementary to university, that's really where you are basically an expert so that you can become an employee or a worker, become a 9 to 5 person, or if you're a nurse, become a 7 to 7. But at the end of the day, someone's telling you where to be, where to go. So even though this idea was so obvious and I was living it, it was just kind of interesting that I hadn't thought of that idea before. And me hearing that idea kind of blew my mind, and it kind of took me out of a matrix if I was in a matrix. And it just showed me that I absolutely know nothing. And since then, I've really learned that I don't know a lot of things, so that I need to learn more things. And from then on, I started listening to different podcasts. Whatever something that I am desperate to learn or desperate to do, I turn into podcasts, YouTube videos, books, all of this. And I really try to consume as much information as possible to get the knowledge that I need so that I can become a different person. Because the person who got their ER job or the nursing job is completely a different person who can quit their job and actually achieve different things. So this is really when I started educating myself. I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, so I bought a course. Knew nothing about writing. I bought a course. I knew nothing about YouTube. I bought Ali Abdal's course. And this isn't to say that you need to buy a course. Of course, there are free information out there, and you should definitely consume those content. What I'm saying is that if you want to completely change your life or become a totally different person in 1 year, you need to be investing in your skills and your knowledge, something that you didn't have before, so that you can become a different person. Because if you're doing the exact same thing over and over again, and you have the same skills and knowledge and thoughts and mindset, how do you expect yourself to change or become a different person doing the exact same thing? It makes no sense. So if you're in a situation where maybe you cannot invest in a course or pay for something, first, there's Google and YouTube. There's so many free information out there, and you can totally start with those. But even better than that, actually save up for the education that you want to give yourself. For me, the way I justified all those thousands of dollars that I spent on courses was that I was using that time to basically educate myself. I was basically getting a master's on myself or on my whatever skills or interests I had, which is at the time quitting my job and learning about the online world. So if I wasn't spending money on an actual university program and a master's program, which what I wanted, then I would be spending that money on actually pursuing my own interests and developing skills that I was actually interested in learning, instead of being in a university where I don't even know if I'm gonna like by the end of it. And the second tip tip I have for you is to consume high quality content from the people living your dream life. So when I was a nurse and I was still living at my parents' house, I was consuming content from this creator. Her name was Vanessa Lau, or is Vanessa Lau. She doesn't post anymore, but I was obsessed with her content because I resonated so much with her story. Basically, she was 25 years old and she was hating her corporate job at her 9 to 5, and she quit. And it was so interesting because at that time, that's what I was feeling. I was wanting to quit my job. I hated it. So anything that she was posting out there, I completely resonated with it. So I basically followed her lifestyle. I became a coach. I did some Instagram stuff, but at one point I didn't resonate with it anymore, so I had to stop. But that's besides the point. And it's the same thing when it comes to writing. I got into writing. I got obsessed with this one writer. His name was Nicholas Cole, and I wanted to learn how to write like him. And so I bought a course from him, and I actually ended up writing for his company, which is pretty cool. But the point is that when you're consuming content from the people living your dream life, yes, you are following their footsteps. Later, you might realize that it's not for you. But again, besides the point. The point is that you make decisions that will get you unstuck from where you are right now so that you can become a completely different person than you are right now. You need to make a completely different action than what you are doing right now. And when you consume people's content, you basically get into their mindset, you get into their actions, you get into their behaviors. And the fastest way to become the person that you want to become is to look up people who are doing the exact same thing as you. And I'm doing this right now. Right now, I'm a bit confused about what path to take because I have so many possibilities. I have infinite possibilities. I can go anywhere I want. And so I need to be consuming content from the people who are living my dream life. Who is living my dream life right now? If I want to be traveling, if I want to have a family one day, how can I make this into a possibility? If I want to be a creator and also have a family, who is it showing up right now that is actually living my dream life? So that is my tip for you, is to consume high quality content from the people that are living your dream life. A quick side note about this is to try not to consume your friends' content. I love that you have friends. I have friends too. And what I've learned is that the fastest way to become a different person is to really limit yourself to your old beliefs and old systems. So that includes seeing what your friends are up to, seeing what your coworkers are up to, because you're trying to become a different person. So you're trying to cultivate a different mindset. And you can't do that when you are constantly seeing the same stuff from the same people that you're around with. You basically need to surround yourself with different things. You need to completely change your world almost, right? You need to change the way you consume. You need to change the way that you are thinking. And a lot of the things that you're thinking comes from the things you're consuming. So if you're seeing your friends going to do all these trips and that's not what you're into, guess what you're going to be influenced to do? So you have to really curate the things that you are seeing online and listening to and all of that. The third tip I have for you is to try out as many things as possible, but one at a time. Because you don't know what you like, you don't know what you love, you don't know anything about you right now in terms of how to get yourself out of the situation you're in. You have to try out as many things as possible, but one at a time. So for example, at the beginning of my journey, I was doing so many things. I was trying out YouTube, I was trying out Medium, I was trying to grow Instagram, and it became so overwhelming that I was like, this isn't for me. And instead of giving up, I actually decided to focus one thing. So I decided to let go of YouTube and I decided to let go of Instagram. So I solely focused on Medium, and that's where I learned how to write and how to grow a following on Medium. And then I changed into Twitter, and now I'm just doing YouTube. So you have your whole life ahead of you that you don't need to do everything all at once. It is so much better for you to put all your efforts, your time and energy into this one thing for 6 months and then realize that it's not for you so that you can move on to something else, instead of going 6 months into doing YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is that you want to try and having half-assed effort or time or energy into these multiple things that at the end you don't even have the right data. I guess data would be the best word to decide whether this thing is for you or not. But when you focus on one thing for 6 months, let's say, you get so much data where you will know right away whether this thing is for you or not for you. But But you have to give yourself the time and space and energy to actually do that. You have to give whatever you're trying out a real shot. Otherwise, you're going to go back into the same spot over and over again where you keep asking yourself, is this for me? Or is that other thing for me? Basically, you have to learn how to let go of the things that are distracting you. And when you do this, when you focus on one thing, you basically gain the skills that nobody can take away from you now, because this is something that you did for yourself. For example, with writing, even though I decided to quit my job, I know in the back of my mind that I can always write for other people, and that is something so secure that I didn't have before. Before that, when I hated my nursing job, I was like, I don't know what else to do because this is the only thing I know how to do. And it's the same thing for people who, are moms or housewives, and they gave so much of their effort and energy into that thing that it made their identity. So when it's taken away from them, they don't know who they are. And that's not the position I want to put myself in ever, or yourself ever. Hopefully, I want you to be able to gain as many skills as possible so that when the time comes, or when the worst case scenario comes, you have yourself to fall back on. You have yourself to lean on, and you don't have to depend on anyone but yourself. And once you have all these new skills or new knowledge or new thing that you have now gained, you're suddenly a completely different person. You can never go back to that person who didn't know something else. The fourth tip that I have for you when it comes to becoming a completely different person is to use your fear to guide your decisions. It might be counterintuitive to do this, but I found that listening to your fear or embracing your fear or doing the thing that you're scared of is actually probably the thing that you actually need to do. In the early days, I had so much fear of pressing record on Instagram for the longest time. I remember I would have panic attacks, and now I'm talking to you like this on camera with potentially to be seen by thousands of people, and I don't care. And I have a feeling that that fear that I experienced 3 years ago has something to do with the fact that I'm talking to you now like this. At one point, I had a fear of writing online because of my grammar, because English is not my first language. I had a fear of becoming a travel nurse because what if I don't like it? And what if people hate me and all that? But then I did all of these things, right? And I'm fine. I did them. They weren't as scary as I thought they would be. And so I learned in this process that whatever it is that you are fearful of is something that you actually need to do. Unless, of course, there are true fears that it's unsafe for you to do them and you probably, or it's risky for you to do them. But most of the time, the risk is in our head. The feeling of not feeling safe is in our head. But in reality, this is something that your core or your intuition or your gut is telling you to do because there is something here that you need to learn or embrace or maybe flourish. Quitting my job was the scariest thing that I have ever done. But looking back now, it is probably the best thing that also have happened to me because I have learned so much about myself. I really learned on how to stand on myself, figure out how to make my own money, how to figure out what I really want and how do I really want to show up and all of these things. So I'm not telling you to quit your job. I am telling you to figure out what are the things that you're scared of and start from there. It can be as simple as I want to write online. I want to create a video. I want to take up a new hobby. All of these things that you're scared of are telling you something. So try to use them as your guiding decisions. Because once you're on the other side of that fear, you have completely become a different person. Because there are two situations. There is that one person who is scared of doing something really big or whatever it is, who goes through their life at the end of their life feeling the same fear. And then there's another person who is fearful of the same thing, but then they will actually overcome that fear and actually do the thing they want to do. In my head, overcoming your fear is basically a skill. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I feel like this is how you become really good at tackling very hard things, from pressing record on your camera, writing online, to making YouTube videos, to making Netflix videos, or whatever it is that you want to be doing. You have to start really small. The fifth tip I have for you when it comes to becoming a different person is to limit your time in the toxic environment that you are in. If you're in a situation where you can't easily leave, maybe it's your job, maybe it's the home that you're living in, I wouldn't say to completely leave them, but I would say try to limit those places or environments that you're in. Your environment has so much more influence in you than you think, and this is because of the psychological phenomenon group conformity. Basically, whatever the collective thinks, you think, even if it's the wrong thing. thing. So if you want to be a completely different person, you need to limit your time in those environments where it's not allowing you to become a different person. For example, the way I did this before I quit my nursing job, I basically made a decision to limit myself in the hospital. I would work 2 to 3 times a week as my minimum commitment, and then even when I was in the unit or when I was at work, on my breaks, I would actually leave the unit and go to the cafeteria, and I would bring my iPad and actually write there. Sometimes I would go to the library because most hospitals have libraries, and I would actually sit there, read, listen to podcasts, and actually just consume something completely different than the environment that I was in. And I did this until I was able to completely leave that environment. But I know that if I hadn't left that environment, I would end up becoming like the people that were there who were mean, who were disrespectful to patients, colleagues, doctors, and I just knew that I would hate myself at the end of it. I wouldn't recognize myself because I would be such a completely different person. So if you want to be a completely different person, you need to learn how to limit yourself in the environments that you're in. If you physically cannot leave the environments you're in, compensate with the stuff that you're consuming. Start listening to podcasts, start consuming content who the people are living your dream life, and actually start asking yourself, how did they get there? How can I start doing the stuff that they did so that I can actually get there too? You have to put yourself in environments where whatever it is that you want to do is the normal thing. Because I didn't have people around me who were also content creators, I couldn't really do that. So the way I did that was that I just consume a lot of content about people making content creation about their life. And then one day I just decided I want to become like that too. I mean, I'm still in this journey, but I think I'm closer to my goals by me showing up like this. And my last tip for you when it comes to becoming a different person in 1 year is to always work on your mindset. I like to think that I am the person that I dreamed of 2 years ago. And the person that I'm dreaming of 2 years later or 2 years in the future is going to be completely different than the person that I am right now. That person acts differently, she dresses differently, she can afford different things, but I know that she exists. And just knowing that that person exists is good enough for me to actually keep showing up in the present now so that I can achieve whatever she has achieved in the future. So this is my last tip for you, is that even though you cannot see your goals or your dreams in your reality right now, I want you to learn to believe that it exists, that it's possible, even just the bare minimum, that it might be possible, because sometimes even that is hard. Like, you're so held up in your negative thoughts, in your self-doubt, in your insecurity that you don't even think that it's possible. But I'm telling you, it is possible, and start to believe that it is possible, that there is a different life for you out there. And once you start to believe that, you can start believing that that reality exists. It's not going to be here right now, but it can exist and it will exist. And once you believe that that version or that successful version of your life is true, even though it's not in your reality yet, but it's in the future, then you can start channeling that energy into the present moment. For example, just the simple act of going to a grocery store. I used to believe that one day I would go to a grocery store and I would not look at the price, and I would just care about the quality of the food that I'm having rather than the price. And that was the energy that I would show up in when I'm buying my groceries. And today, that's exactly what I do. I go to the grocery store and I don't really care about the price. Like, I don't compare the stuff that it's like, oh, this is $1 cheaper, I'm gonna get that. That's 50 cents cheaper, I'm gonna get that. No, I care about, does this have the quality that I want? And to me, that was like my biggest dream. It's not big. I am not dreaming about designer brands of bags of clothes. I'm simply dreaming of things that, like, can I afford a healthy lifestyle? And it might take time for you to get there, but it is possible. You just have to learn how to believe it in the present moment. And you have to act in a way that you think that that thing actually is possible for you, or that it's already done. Like, you're just sure. In the future, that thing that I'm doing, it's done. It's happening. You have to basically normalize it in your head so that it can actually show up in your reality. I know it's very hard and it takes a lot more work than just me talking about it, but it truly is the work. It has to start from your mind. So that is my tip for you when it comes to becoming a completely different person in 1 year. I hope that this video resonated with you, and actually let me know if it helped you. And I hope that you be kind to yourself and you take it one day at a time. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.